Every streak is made to be broken.
Now, I knew you were going to go there. That's why if you go back and look at our text,
don't even play the ish card.
Let's go at 3-ish.
Yeah, I knew you were going to pull the ish card.
I am 3 for 3.
Ugh.
I am still on fire at being right on time.
You sound a little nasally.
I do?
Did you just come from the pool?
No, I've been standing outside in allergies all week.
Oh, man. Time on your feet.
Time on my feet. No time in the pool, on the bike, or on the run.
Wow.
But 10 hours. Well, I mean a little bit in the pool. I went over to swim today, but evidently Jesus is not a big fan of people swimming on Easter Sunday at the YMCA.
Yeah, the YMCA is cool if you want to work out during like the however many days you have for Hanukkah or whatever they have. You can swim all you want, but if you want to swim on Easter, nope,
not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
But this Nashville's getting so trendy now. I've been down in the Gulch that I think it's just a matter. They've already broadened the Sunday hours over at the downtown Y, so I feel like Easter's next.
Could be.
You know, they gotta appeal to all the.
Yeah, it's no longer. I'm not sure you can consider Nashville with all the transients and the new pop culture and millennials much of the Bible Belt anymore.
At least not in this pocket of.
No, not even close. For
sure. So it's man, race season is here, brother.
It is upon us. It is. I'm finally getting antsy.
Me too.
I'm getting antsy. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sure you are.
I'm antsy.
You're fully trained for the Fitbit 70.3 World Championships.
Yeah, I know. It might take me three shots at it. I'm gonna have to do a few. I'm gonna do Chattanooga, Muncie, Racine. Is there any other ones that I could do?
Those are all pretty close, man. But a 3 is good. I mean, that was actually kind of, I know we're going to talk about, the race season is upon us, and I know we gotten a few emails and want us to go over like actual triathlon news, and then at some point in the podcast, I do want to cover like, people have asked us, how do you want to approach, your A race, your B race, and your C race.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and I go ahead.
Now, before we go, can we at least bring up one of our listeners, Sharon, who has followed the How Not to Suck at Swimming podcast verbatim and stuck with us for a month and cut, 20 seconds off her 100 time?
Yeah, off her 100 time.
Yeah, 100 yards. Yeah, so if
I'll let you take it. I don't want to, flatter myself too much on the air. I'll let you do it for me.
Okay, I will do that for you.
Thank you.
I mean, if you're having any doubts about your swimming and whether or not the lessons transcribed in this podcast work, go check out How Not to Suck at Swimming and follow, what Coach has prescribed in those podcasts, and get back to us. We've had a few people kind of insinuate that they were, improving, but now we have hard facts. And what'd you say? That's about 5 minutes and a half or something?
Yeah, that's 5 whole minutes off for swim time. This is literally the and I got a ton of like emails and like even text messages from friends that are like, "Are you for real? Just swim with a pull buoy for a month?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, just do it. Just shut your mouth. Go do what I tell you to do, and then come back." And this person said, "Okay, challenge accepted."
Yeah.
And 30 days later, literally 20 seconds off her 100, which is remarkable.
So you don't even have to go listen to the podcast. Just put a pull buoy between your legs and swim for a month.
Yeah.
And then buy our swim plan.
She changed. Exactly. Yeah, buy our swim plan and you'll be ready to go. But no, she tweaked her stroke as well, which is something that we cover, which is vitally important. And it's a lot of great info, and it is it's free speed that comes with fitness.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
First, I think we'll start off with a little upcoming triathlon race calendar teaser.
Yeah.
It is, lots of emails, and a lot of our listeners are also, I think, fairly new to the sport, and want to know like triathletes to follow, races to follow, and I know that most people only hear about like the Ironman races and and those things, and I would heavily encourage everyone to, every year I spend about, I don't know, maybe like $15 to like $21, I think is all it is, to buy like the season pass for the ITU Triathlon, which is what they race in the Olympics. It's either sprint or Olympic distance, and they show all of these events live when they happen. The men and the women's race, and you can watch them on your laptop, and they are like incredibly fun to watch. Like the open water swimming, it's all draft legal on the bike, and that's where you have athletes like a lot of people know Gwen Jorgensen, Flora Duffy, Sarah True, the Brownlee brothers, all those people. Obviously, they're pretty high up there. That everybody kind of knows. Richard Murray, Mario Mola. It's super cheap and so fun to watch, and I actually think a lot of our listeners would really actually enjoy it. And they've got one literally like almost every other weekend, so it's super fun to watch, and you don't have to worry about following, Iron Track or really weak coverage like Ironman provides. It's super fun to watch, so I would encourage that. And then as far as like 70.3 Ironman racing, you've got your first full distance North American Ironman coming up here April 22nd in Ironman Texas, which is pretty popular, and a very early season race. And then my personal 70.3 favorite from a competition standpoint, that is 70.3 St. George, which is in Utah. It's a race I've always really wanted to do, and I think outside of like probably Chattanooga this year with the World Championships, that this is the most stacked field you're going to see. You're going to have Sebastian Kienle there defending not defending, but 2014 Ironman World Champion, Lionel Sanders, who everybody is in love with, who's like I think undefeated in like this last like 70.3s. And one of the Brownlee brothers is making his first jump up to 70.3 distance. It's just a lot of athletes, really great venue there in St. George, Utah. And then obviously we have a lot of our listeners competing in Chattanooga, 70.3 in May. And then at that point, once May kicks off, you're looking at like races every other weekend across the globe. So the season is upon us.
Yeah, ready or not.
Yeah, seriously, ready or not is right.
Oh, I know it. Jeez, I've been thinking about that. Actually, how do I get, because it's like training's one thing, but kind of getting yourself in that race mode to understand. And I mean, because you get off that bike and it's never the same.
No, it's never the same.
So how do you get there mentally? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm kicking around.
Just time on your feet, man. Just shoot some more videos, and you'd be fine.
Yes, I'm shooting video, getting sunburn on my forehead, and trying to, project that into mile 6 of my half. That same feeling of just getting scorched and your legs falling apart and your ankles hurting. Yeah,
well, that's part of why we do it,
Yeah.
At least some people do. But no, I think this is most people don't have an A race in May, but I thought we could talk a little bit about a lot of people like to approach it as A race, B race, C race of the season, and I don't think you necessarily have to like label them A, B, C, D, E, whatever. But I like to look at them in terms of the 3 R's. You've got your rust race, your rehearsal race, and then your race. And your rust race would be what I would consider anything C or below, which is basically you're just shaking off the rust. It is and you'll see a lot of people refer to it as their early season hit out, which is what you'll see. Yeah, they call it their hit out race, followed by like a million different excuses because it's so early in the year and they're not happy with their time.
Oh, hit out. Is that like the hit training?
It's definitely not
Oh, okay.
HIIT
I
training.
didn't know if it had
But
tie-in.
yeah, but you'll see a lot of people refer to it as an early season hit out, like they're whatever they want to say, dusting off the cobwebs, whatever it is. But your C race or anything below your second primary race, I would always consider just a rust race, dusting off the cobwebs, kicking off the rust, and really just getting back into the swing of things and getting a feel for what you need to work on, what you've forgotten, what you're struggling with. And it's really just an early season barometer and a reality check. It's so funny because we always like to make these expectations before we even like get a race under our belt for the season. Like, it even aggravates me, and those of people that are listening will know not to ask me again that already have. It's like, what's your time goal for Leadville? I'm like, dude, I have no clue. Right now, it's just hopefully to finish. It's April. I haven't even done, I've done a lot of training, but not near enough. I don't have a lot of races to kind of gauge where I want to be. So, like, to have some arbitrary time goal is really just irrelevant. It's just for shits and giggles to kind of have one. Once you race, then it's like, all right, well, I'm either faster than I thought I was, or I'm slower than I thought I was. I've either made vast improvements in my swimming and running and cycling, or I haven't. And if you're working on a weakness during your off season, which a lot of people do, a lot of times that first race is a barometer to see how much you've caught up. So if let's say you've been working on your running this off season, and your percentages for your training have been like, we'll say 50% running, 25% cycling and swimming, and you've caught up your first race this season and seen a lot of really good gains, then maybe it's time to kind of reappropriate those percentages, maybe 33, or whatever you want to do. But that first race is a rust race, kick it off and, figure out what's working, what's not working, and then now it's time to like fine tune it. And then you move into, you're basically build your next training block towards your B race, and that or like I call it your rehearsal race, which is, let's see what I've learned and let's try to apply it as closely as I can to what my A race is going to be. And if you're doing a 70.3, it can be a direct replica of what you want to accomplish in your A. Maybe even try some things out that might be risky. Push the power, push the speed on the run, push it on the swim, or do a more conservative effort. Lay back on the swim, conservative on the bike, blaze out on the run. A different nutrition strategy, whatever it is. It's a good time to tinker. As far as pretty close to, because once you get to like what your rehearsal race or your B race is within the season, you're not at your peak fitness, but you're pretty darn well close.
Yeah, and what you're saying there, dude, is because I'm, going back to like you don't like to call races A, B, and C from a previous podcast or whatever, but what you're saying is you're telling people you don't throw a race away, use it in a way that's productive, and take chances more so than just kind of be like, well, this race doesn't matter.
Yeah, and a lot of people. And we did cover this, and a lot of people, and maybe this was actually an email, I think that we covered, is a lot of people, unfortunately, approach these races with pre-excuses built in. And what I personally believe is that you should treat every race as a race, because it is that. You've trained for it, you've hopefully prepared for it, whether you want to taper for it is not. Like, don't build in excuses unless you plan on building in excuses when it comes down to your big time race. If you plan on doing Ironman later in the year and you plan on lining up with a bunch of excuses, then by all means start your excuse train now. But if you plan on lining up for an Ironman in the best shape of your life with great training and knowing how important it is, then practicing the mental and emotional investment and the pressure you're going to put on yourself, because a lot of times, the decision making and the mental and emotional pressure that people feel during Ironman usually is what determines success or failure, not physical preparation or a lack of physical preparation. Because even if you've physically prepared, you can make catastrophic mistakes mentally and emotionally by getting your ego get in the way, by making pacing mistakes, by taking chances, and ruin your race. Even if you're undertrained or not where you are physically, as much as you want to be from a fitness standpoint, you can improve your race by being smart, by being tactical, by nailing everything. And so approaching a race with the intent and mindset of this is a race, it's important, and I want to do well, gives you that in-race feeling of making decisions that matter. Because if you just walk into a race thinking, it doesn't matter, I'm in a big training block, I haven't tapered, blah, 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 then you don't have that pressure. And you're actually much more likely, in my opinion, to make, well, they're not even mistakes, because you don't have that much riding on them. It's just poor judgment. And if you want to practice poor judgment, do that. If you want to practice making good decisions under pressure, which is what really sports is all about, then treat the races, with that kind of a mindset.
Yeah. Can we, I know you cited a little bit of an example, but you want to maybe dig into that a little bit more with just in a couple examples of, do you swim hard and then get out and then maybe walk to your bike and, just to see if you can do it? Or, what kind of things are you talking about as far as that?
As far as like things
race.
Rehearsal race. Well, a lot of it's going to depend on, what you've seen over your training and what you learned from your rust race. If I'm running really well, holding back on your cycling and running faster is a great example. Because if you're running well, and having that confidence to say, all right, well, if you're doing it by power, I know I want to average about 190 to 200 average power. So in my rehearsal race, do I want to tinker on the high end at 200 and see how well I run? Or do I want to be a little more conservative like I would be at a longer distance race at 190 and see if I can just run my legs off and go to town? And you might find that either A, you went out too hard at 200 and your running just struggled and you failed around, mile 7 or 8, which means either A, you overbiked, or you need more muscular endurance for the run, or B, you chose to lay back a little bit on the bike and you did 190 and then you ran so fast you felt like you had too much in the tank at the end.
Oh, man, I can't imagine how many people would have to. That does sound like an interesting experiment in general for people to try, I would think, to kind of hold back on the bike. I can't imagine many people actually do that, do they? What do you think?
Well, that's the problem. That's why you see so many people walking.
Yeah.
And I use this phrase a lot, and I don't remember who said it first or the best, but I said there's no such thing as a good bike followed by a bad run. Because if you truly biked well and you biked appropriately, then you could run well.
Mm-hmm. I know I haven't tried that. This might be my time to try it, except I would, but I'm competing against somebody at Chattanooga, and it's, that's it.
Well, I guess. You're treating Chattanooga like a rust race. You're just going to be like,
yes,
let's just see. Well, you are now. It wasn't your intent, but again, that's kind of where, we talk about this all the time. It's like where we set our expectations at during a part of our lives that's totally different from the reality of 3 to 4 months later.
This is true. Yeah.
And so, that's it's a good time to get a barometer and see how things go. And
I just hate the idea of having one race scheduled and calling it my rust race. So, I guess this is going to force me to add another one.
Yeah, well, I guess depending on how poorly or well the first one goes.
Yeah.
You could have the approach that CC has, which is I'm going to train so hard so I can do well and go sub 5 and then retire. And if I don't race well and I go above 5, I'll be tempted to do another one and just extend a career I want to retire from. So it's all about perception.
Yeah.
But and so in the rehearsal stuff, that stuff you should try in training as well. As far as you doing your bike sessions and how you feel afterwards, and but doing it within a race is just a totally different dynamic. Because one of the biggest areas people make mistakes. Nobody ever made a mistake when they were too patient, or they started off too slow. It's always because you started too fast, or went too hard, or took a risk. And so you're more susceptible to doing that during a race because of the pressure, because of the environment, because of the atmosphere, because of your expectations. And a rehearsal race too is a great race to go no data, like just go blank, swim by feel, bike by feel, run your hardest, and then look at the data afterwards, and see what happens. It's if you're going to try it during a race like that, and just see what happens. Most oftentimes you're usually faster, because again, people. This is and I'm a huge fan of pre-writing courses before you do them, but I'm not a fan of doing it 35,000 times, because this is just an example I use, because you establish expectations based on the temperature, the time of year, who you're riding with, and your current level of fitness. And then when you get to race day, you're like, oh, well, let's see. So my last ride on that course, I was able to average 20. So race day comes, and once you get on the bike, you try to average 20. Most of the time, a lot of people end up failing at that because they don't take into account the actual physical hole they bury themselves in over the course of a 2.4 mile swim. And getting used to it, and riding alone, not riding with a group, which I'm still ride with a group. It could be windier versus the times you've ridden it alone. It could be hotter, it could be cooler. So replicating the exact environment from a pre-course ride versus the actual race day is virtually impossible. But a lot of people do that. So using a rehearsal race to kind of fine-tune your game plan, and after that rehearsal race, when you start to prep for your A race, at that point, usually the time in between your rehearsal race and your big race of the year usually isn't that long. We're usually talking like 6 to 8, 9 weeks maybe, and during that time you will get a little bit fitter, but the time in between those races is usually it should be dedicated towards fine-tuning all of your pace. Yes, will you spend a little bit of time above and below race pace? Absolutely. But the main goal is to replicate race effort, and see how you feel before you get to it, and really just work out all the kinks. Is 135 heart rate too high? Is 130 too low? Is 140 too high? Is 145 too low? And really, really work on pacing and getting your body ready. And what you'll also see, because it's such a different training, well, it should, I guess when I say this, I should preface it with, if you're structuring your training appropriately, a lot of people think you should be raising your volume in terms of how much closer you get to race day, but that's actually not accurate if you want to approach it an intelligent way. And what I mean by that is, for your B race, if let's say your B race is, both your races are a 70.3. Your rehearsal race, let's say you're averaging 15 to 16 hours a week. You're getting in a lot of volume. You're getting a little bit of intensity, and you're averaging 15 to 16 hours a week. Well, as you get out of that and you start to work towards your A race, you should see your volume actually decrease. And the reason why is you're spending more of that time at higher intensities, so you're taking more out of yourself. So, we talked about this before when I went through Training Peaks a little bit, is, every session is equated a number. And so let's say during your build phase, we like to call for which usually is around your rehearsal race or your B race, you might be doing 16 hours a week, and the result of those 16 hours equals we'll say something easy and arbitrary like 1,000 points for your training stress score. Well, if you just manipulate the intensities to where you're doing it harder and more race specific, then once you get closer to your actual race and your A race, you could be doing only 10 to 12 hours, but still accumulating that same 1,000 training stress score. So the intensity and the stress is still there and cumulative. It's just more focused and specific towards what your ultimate goal is. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I think that you've ingrained that into me, because I've been looking at the next month or so that I have before my race, and I just got to thinking, well, my base is kind of where it's at right now, so what I want to try to start doing is just not, maybe I don't want to get hurt, so I'm not going to go all out, balls to the walls on some of these, high intensity or sprint type related activity, but I want to start pushing my, with good warm up, of course, but like, getting over the, consistent, slower pacing kind of thing. I just want to get my legs and feeling how that feels a little bit, but not with craziness. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, you can go run an hour and a half super easy, or you can go run 50 to 60 minutes super hard.
Yeah.
And they're going to both take it out of you totally differently. You may actually feel better after the hour and a half.
Well, yeah. After the hour and a half or the hour?
The hour and a half.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Versus the 50 minutes, but or it could be the exact same. It's all based on intensity and how you want to do it and how you want to spread it out over your training, and that's why that's why it's so difficult once you get into like race season and you start to get antsy. That's why you see so many people get injured, is because they get too antsy too quick. And that what they want to do is they want to start testing their speed before it's actually time. And they do it during workouts, and they do it more often, and they're trying to kind of reassure themselves. And then you see people get injured so early in the year.
Yeah, I just I guess I keep thinking I just want to see some of these. Let's just use that 20 mile an hour example on the bike. If that's my target, I just want to start. For me, it helps to start seeing numbers pushing higher. You know what I mean? Like if I can start seeing 25, 26 miles on some short sprinty type activities, and I also think that is I just, for whatever reason in my head, I just think that goes a lot further than riding twice as far at 20.5 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could, like, what I would suggest is that's why, like as you space it out, you're like, if you were approaching Chattanooga and you'd already kind of done, the build up is, let's say you did like, a 2 hour ride and you were doing work at, and let's say like you said, your goal miles per hour, whatever, for Chattanooga is 20 miles per hour. And that's a total arbitrary number because of the course and the terrain and the wind and whatever it is. But for conversation's sake, we'll just say, 20 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Well, for your build phase and your 2 hour rides, you may spend a lot of your time at you might have spent a lot of your time at 17 to 18 mile an hour, mm-hmm. but your interval is at like, 23, 24 mile an hour, and so you may end up averaging 20. Mm-hmm. But it's a totally different training stress and response to your body. Then closer to race day, what you'll probably do is spend, that same 2 hour ride, you might warm up for 20 minutes easy and then spend the next hour and 30 minutes at 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
And then cool down, because you'll start to spend those longer durations at what you would call, your race pace, which for this point of the conversation would be that 20 miles an hour. Same goes for running. Right now in your build phase, you're either working way above your race pace or way under, because usually your race pace, especially for 70.3, is really in that what we like to call your gray zone, your zone 3, which is a zone you just don't want to be in because you can do it long enough and hard enough to where you're going to be just sore for days. It's not something so short, that's going to hurt so bad that you're like, oh, I can't sustain this. So then you take a 10-minute recovery. It's the same conversation we just had about the 60-minute hard run versus the hour and a half easy run. And then as you get closer to your A race, you build in longer, sustainable efforts of your goal effort, your goal race pace. So instead of doing, 5K intervals with a lot of rest, it would probably turn into 15 to 20 minute intervals at your goal race pace with minimal recovery in the middle. To really just mimic how you feel, because not just from the physiological standpoint, but the biggest thing that I always try to nail into my athletes is the nutrition. Nutrition for an interval, for a workout that's going to be zone 4, zone 5, all out with a lot of recovery, to me doesn't take near the calorie uptake and attention to detail that a 2-hour perfectly sustained even race pace run does, because you don't want to fluctuate that much. And so it's those nutritional demands that are totally based on the physical stress you're putting in and how much. And there's so many variables you can put in, but that's why the rehearsal race and even the rust races are so important, because you need to learn things about them. And I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's also why you should treat them as important, because if you don't, then the data you collect is almost useless. And if you want to get better throughout the year and not just stay stagnant or even get worse, then you need to treat them as such, collect the data, rinse, repeat, learn, and move on.
Yeah, that's all good stuff, man. I don't know. I'm just excited about the race season. I'm to watch everybody else. No, I'm kidding. It's just been a weird couple, or I guess it's been a weird month for me, because I've had 2 long weeks off, pretty much. I mean, I've tried to get swimming in now and then, but I don't know. It's just such a crapshoot. I have no idea what's going to happen. I've got 3 weeks to kind of put the hammer down a little bit, and not too far, of course, but just to see what happens. Like I said, I'm really in get my body in shape mode, and then kick the rust off. And if there happens to be less than I think there is, then maybe I'll have a good race.
Well, a thing, and this is what I would suggest for you, and I do this sometimes, like for myself in training, is like towards the end of a taper week, I might go for a substantially longer run that I may or may not be ready for. But the beauty of it is that I just don't know. And for me, especially in this kind of like new endeavor of ultra running and racing, is anything over 26 miles to me is foreign territory. I mean, it's foreign pacing, and it's foreign to me from a training load standpoint. How much can I handle? But it's not really about how much training you could handle. It's how much training is appropriate. And I think we often lose sight of that mindset when it comes to any kind of training. Is I want just enough, because just enough training is better than just a little bit more.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so for me, what I'm trying to find out is like, I did 66 miles 2 weeks ago, and I kind of have a number in my head, like maybe 75 to 80 is what I kind of want to get up to for a couple weeks for a regular weekly mileage. And you see a lot of people, some people are doing like 100 and 120, and that may or may not be good for them. That may work for them, may not work for me. But what I want to figure out now is like, what methods do work for me? Can I do a ton of like 50-mile training weeks with hard weightlifting and using the weight vest on the treadmill, like a high incline, and then can I rattle off a 40-mile or a 50-mile race with no problem? And if that's the case, then I learned something about myself. Then that I can use, not necessarily, and we talked about this just a minute ago, is volume is not the differentiator in success in triathlon. It's not, more is more, but it's the appropriate dispersion of intensity and recovery and endurance training. But what's better for me, 50-mile weeks and perform well at a 50-miler, or work up to 75, 80 miles a week and then still do well, or maybe just as good? So it's kind of figuring out what your body needs, and how it adapts. Because some people adapt, like, are great responders with the not minimal training, but more focused. Some people do better at long mileage. Like you see a lot of these guys that are doing Leadville that do like literally 100 to 120 mile training weeks. I have absolutely no intention of going over 80 to 85. But I do have a lot of intention of hitting the weights really hard, and doing a lot of hiking and doing a lot of walking on the treadmill with a weight vest. And so like this time of year, it's like, all right, let me find out what's working. And so like when I do this stage race in June, I want to get answers of, all right, well, this is how my training went. So for somebody like you, you're going into this Chattanooga race and you're going to say, all right, well, this is what my training looked like before. Okay, barely existent, not really focused. I got in some, but if you hit it hard, the next 4 weeks and you end up doing okay, then you learn something about yourself. So it's not really a wash. It's still a learning experience where you can take, all right, well, maybe I don't need to like jack it up to training 12 to 14 hours a week. Maybe I can stay steady for 8 hours and then slam it for 10 hours close to the race and then do well still. So it's all a learning experience, and it's just how you approach it, and then take the lessons you've learned and reflect and then move forward. Yeah. So, you'll see. And I think, if you're out there listening, and I would honestly say 9 out of 10 athletes that are listening right now probably haven't had the perfect lead up to their first race of the year. I mean, believe me, I know specifically, myself included, you and a bunch of other athletes that I coach have had tons of, if you have literally, it's April. If you haven't had some kind of a life stressor or a circumstance or a sickness or a stressor in your life, then God bless you. I envy you.
Yeah, no kidding.
But most of us have. Like I was supposed to do a race yesterday, and I ended up not doing it because I had something that popped up with work that was more important. And so, but I had to make that decision. So like now I got to find another race. And so it's just all about perspective. It's like, rein back in your expectations and see what happens. And that's really the fun of it, is not getting, too wrapped up in what you don't. Okay, let me put it this way. Don't get too wrapped up in what you predicted in January that you lose sight of what you can do right now. And that's the best piece of advice I can give anybody, and that's probably a good place to end. Is that you're coming up on your first real race of the season, and just don't get caught up in the predictions you made in January compared to where you are right now, because it will literally suck the life and the enjoyment out of a sport or whatever it is, or a lifestyle that's supposed to be the exact opposite.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense for me at this point, because really also what that can do is I have a month left, and if I think that I'm going to do what I mistakenly predicted quite a while ago, it would almost be like there's no way I can do it and I would throw in the towel, but I still have time, to do things. And I plan to do it, and I'm going to try and, like you said, within the scope of what makes sense, do the best I can with what time I do have left.
Yeah, and approaching the race with that reality, and perspective, because it's like, all right, I'm going to do the best I can based on what I have right now, and then do that instead of taking that opposite mindset, which a lot of people do, which is, oh man, I just haven't kind of had the best lead up, so it's whatever. And so you're going to get absolutely nothing out of it. You're not even going to get, really, in my opinion, a good experience out of it, because you just kind of poo-pooed the whole experience. But in reality it's still pretty incredible what you're going to be able to do with the life circumstances and stress and whatever it is. And it's still, I think we all lose sight of kind of oh, I'm just going to kind of do a 70.3, with like basically, my highest training volume has been in filmmaking and standing on my feet with a video camera, 15 hours a week. And you're still going to do it. And you're still going to probably do it fairly well, compared to a lot of the field. So, I think that's also a good thing to, remember is, it's never, as with all things in life, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems.
Absolutely, buddy. All right, there's some good stuff for everybody, I think. Let's keep it focused.
Absolutely.
Keep us posted on your upcoming races, what's going on, how you're doing, what you need to know. If you have any questions, crushingiron@gmail.com. Stay in touch with us. And please, if you're anywhere near the Mid-South, try to get down to Ironman Chattanooga. Make plans. 70.3.
Yeah. If you're listening and you are or know somebody who's going to be there, please email us. Email us. You can email Mike at crushingiron@gmail.com, or you can email me at c26coach@gmail.com, because we would really like to get a big little get together and chat and meet a bunch of people. And so please email us or post to the Crushing Iron Facebook page. If you haven't liked that page yet, please like it. We have a lot of good content from the past and present. And we look forward to seeing you in 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah. Also, if anybody has one of those tents you can set up on a lawn, we would love to have that kind of as a central meeting point. And I just don't have one.
I'll throw in a little kicker for that.
Okay.
If you are going to be at Chattanooga 70.3 and can provide one of those pop-up tents for the day to kind of help us have a kind of Crushing Iron meetup in Central location, I will write you a 12 to 16 week training plan of your choice for a specific race.
What?
That'll be my contribution, since we don't want to buy a tent, and neither of us probably have time to do that before the race, since I'll be moving and you'll be trying to train for the first time this year. So if you we'll be in around and there and can bring a tent or know somebody that can let us use one, then 12 to 16 week training plan can be for whatever race you want. And I feel like that's a fair trade.
Pretty good one. And cooler, bring a cooler so we can put water in there.
Yeah.
We'll supply the water.
Give us something with the works. Yeah, we'll take care of the water.
Yeah,
we just take care of the cooler.
All right. That is the Crushing Iron podcast for Monday, April 7th.
That's it, man. I'll see you later, Mike.
All right, man. Thanks.